All right, I'm going to take the next few minutes to talk to you about what I did on deployment in 2011 when I was commanding the Carney. So Carney was assigned to Standing NATO Maritime Group 2, a group of between 4 and 6 NATO ships assigned to an Italian admiral tasked to deter and disrupt pirates off the Horn of Africa. In addition to the Carney and the NATO group, there were 2 other multinational forces, and there were individual ships and aircraft from countries such as South Korea, Japan, Russia, and China, all with the same mission. Now that may sound like a lot of ships, but if you look at the size of the operating area, it really isn't. Operating area is there in purple. It goes from the southern Red Sea through the Gulf of Aden, out into the Indian Ocean, and almost all the way up to the Straits of Hormuz. To get a sense of scale, I've overlaid the United States on the operating area. Just for us to patrol the eastern shore of Somalia would be like patrolling our east coast from Georgia all the way up to Maine. A little bit about the Carney. She's an Aegis Arleigh Burke destroyer. She's a multi-mission ship. What do I mean by that? She had the capability to do things such as defend a carrier in the time of war against missiles, aircraft, submarines, or other ships. Or if there was a natural disaster, we were prepared to go respond and help people as needed. On the ship, we like to say she was 505 feet of fighting American steel. She was manned by 285 of the best sailors in the Navy. They were all ready at a moment's notice to go do any of those missions I mentioned. So you might ask yourself, why is such a capable warship going up against pirates, as you see in the picture here, that are armed with little more than an RPG, a ladder, and AK-47? The answer is we were there to protect the mariners and the free flow of commerce. Now, while they might not have had a lot of resources to do their mission, the pirates are pretty resilient. As you can see in the other diagram, most of the successful hijackings in 2008 occurred up in the Gulf of Aden, where most of the traffic was. As the international forces started having some success against the pirates, they changed their tactics. They started using hijacked vessels as motherships so they could extend their range further out to sea. As you can see, by 2011, they were conducting successful attacks almost all the way to India. The threat to the mariners is quite real. If you didn't realize, between 2005 and 2012, it's estimated that 3,700 mariners were taken by pirates. Of those, it's estimated between 82 and 97 were killed, either during the pirate attack or while they were in detention. Threat to commerce is also quite large. 75% of the trade that goes between Asia and Europe flows through the Gulf of Aden on its way to and from the Suez Canal. In 2011, Somali pirates attacked 286 ships, successfully hijacked 33 of those, and collected about $160 million in ransom money. It's estimated the total cost of Somali piracy in 2011 alone was $7 billion. So now that you understand who we were up against, why we were out there, a little bit about what I did while I was on deployment. The Carney was assigned to patrol the IRTC, or the Internationally Recognized Transit Corridor. Essentially, it's a 2-lane highway in the Gulf of Aden. Mariners were asked to use this highway so we could consolidate our efforts and better defend them and disrupt the pirates. The way I accomplished this mission, I kind of treated it like a cop walking his beat in the neighborhood. We would aggressively patrol our neighborhood. We spent a lot of time getting to know the patterns and the people in the neighborhood. And then if somebody asked for help, if they were being attacked, we went full speed every time, no questions asked. So the way we got to know people and the patterns in the neighborhood was by talking to people, just like the neighborhood cop would. First step in that process is finding something you're interested in and you want aboard. So on the screen right now, you'll see a dhow. A dhow is a traditional wooden vessel used in the area for trade and fishing. That dhow that you see there could either be a legitimate fisherman towing 3 fishing skiffs, or it could be a mothership towing 3 attack skiffs. So once we'd find something we were interested in, we'd close it and we'd try and establish communications with it. Often we couldn't, because a lot of these guys didn't have radars and they didn't have any radios. We'd approach a little closer. I'd look for visual threats. Once I was satisfied we could safely board that vessel with my sailors, we would go over and conduct the boarding. So when you conduct a boarding, The Carney had 2 small boats. Put those specially trained sailors in those boats. They go over to the vessel and they take control of it. They would talk to the vessel master. We would search it. We would look for evidence of pirates. The boarding teams had highly trained sailors. The teams ranged from 6 to 18 sailors, depending on the size of the vessel and what I perceive to be the threat. Here you see an example of a small boarding, 1 boarding team and 1 boat. The other thing we did to mitigate the threat, because they were so vulnerable as they went from my boat to the vessel, is I would take the Carney, all 505 feet of her, and I'd get as close as I could to that vessel. And I'd have every weapon I own manned and topside as a deterrent. It was pretty successful for me. Fortunately, none of my sailors were ever fired upon on my deployment. That wasn't always the case. Up there on the screen right now is a dhow. In 2012, a NATO ship approached it, and the pirates on board decided to fire on that ship. The NATO ship decided to defend itself, and you can see the result. Even while the NATO sailors were trying to rescue those pirates that abandoned that ship, they were taking fire from pirates ashore behind the dhow. So the good news is the international efforts have been successful. I'm proud to have played a small part in that. Since 2012, piracy in the Horn of Africa has dropped off dramatically. In 2014 alone, there were only 12 attempted attacks and 0 successful hijackings. I attribute that to the persistent, aggressive international effort by many multinational forces and organizations. I also attribute that to some of the changes in the mariner industry. They've done things like change their practices to drive faster, simple things like that. They've also invested in some passive protection systems, such as the water mist system and the barbed wire you see in that picture. Despite the good news, piracy worldwide continues to be a problem, given its long history and the fact that 90% of trade by volume and 70% by value travels by the water. This problem's not going away anytime soon. I fully believe vessels like the Carney are going to continue to be required to perform this mission, but I also think in the future you'll see technology enable us to more effectively, efficiently, and safely perform this mission. With that, I'll take any of your questions.
Questions?
How did you deal with language barriers between you and the other, whoever was driving the other ships?
So the language barriers. So first I mentioned the communications problem. So first you tried to get around that. So oftentimes the way we did that was we had it's called a sound commander, a big speaker where you could focus sound. And then we had a translator on board. That sound commander system also had some prearranged messages. So if the translator wasn't available, we could give them basic commands and then ask them to raise their right hand or left hand if they understand. Very basic communications. Most of the time we had a translator on board though.
Sure.
Do you see a role for some unmanned systems that could be aboard a destroyer that could help you counter some of this?
So the question, if you didn't hear it, was, do you see unmanned systems helping you with this? If you notice, my story wasn't about technology. It's kind of an old mission, right? An enduring mission. I was pretty unfortunate. I did not have a helicopter on my ship. So the name of the game when you're fighting pirates is getting to a ship that's under attack and helping them before the pirates can get on board. That's the key to success. Without a helicopter, you're limited to the speed of your vessel. So my vessel, the Carney, could do a little over 30 knots. If I could talk to the master of another ship under attack, and we could close each other, we could get a relative speed of about 45 knots, maybe a little more. So, had I had an unmanned system that I could have launched quickly, get over there to have some kind of effect on those pirates, that would have been great. When I was doing the boardings, for instance, and I'm trying to establish that visual threat, even if I had just a basic quadcopter of some kind, that was, that I could use in high winds, it's very durable, easy to launch. Maybe I could have just gone over there and dropped the radio on their deck so we could talk to them better, kind of back to your communication. Or I could have a camera on that thing to look for threats in a little more detail. When I was looking for threats, I was using binoculars, getting as close as I could to that guy. trying to scope it out before we went over there. But you don't know what you're going to get till you get over there. You actually get inside the vessel. Get all that skiff.
What was the fate of the captured prisoners?
What was the fate of the captured prisoners, and then how did they jail them? What jurisdiction?
Okay, so I didn't capture any prisoners during my deployment. That's one of the big problems. Nobody, well not nobody, not a lot of people want to take ownership of those prisoners and prosecute them. And that's one of the big problems. My personal experience, I caught a lot of guys I thought were pirates, but the pirates actually fairly smart. They see you rolling up on them, like a cop, see you in your rearview mirror. They took anything, any evidence, and they would just throw it overboard. So all the guns would go overboard, the ladder, anything that you could use as evidence. So many times when I caught these guys, it was a catch and release program. You know, we brought them on board, we talked to them, used the interpreter, and then got permission, and we'd find a safe piece of land in Somalia. I'd take their boat, take their engine away, give them some paddles, and get them about half a mile off the shore as they paddle in. Don't do it again. Because nobody wanted to take ownership of these guys, and I didn't have sufficient evidence.
Good. Thanks, Rich.